I'm not so middle-aged to think that headbands are in right now, but they are kind of necessary, right? All this skincare. I made this headband, I think, in maybe an hour, and it's really easy, great beginner project. Really easy to make look like really legit, you know? As legit as a headband can look, I guess.
I made things a little more difficult for myself because I wanted to use this hand-dyed scarf, which wasn't quite long enough. But ultimately, you just need a really long, skinny rectangle. It should be about 2 times as long as the circumference of your head when you measure your head along where a headband would sit, like behind your ears. So mine is 44 inches because that measurement for me is 22 inches. The width is twice as wide as you want your finished piece, plus seam allowance. So for me, I wanted a 1.5 inch headband, and I was using 3/8 inch seam allowance. So my width was 3 3/4 inch. I took advantage of an already finished hem on this scarf, so you won't see me do it here. But if your short ends are raw, then you just want to take one of them and fold it over twice and sew that in place so that you have a nice finished edge on one of the shorter ends. Next, fold it in half lengthwise so you have an even skinnier long rectangle, and give it a good press. Then take it over to the sewing machine and sew those 2 raw long edges together. Next, you're going to turn this long tube inside out. I have this turning tool, which you can find really inexpensively at any craft sewing kind of store, but you could also just use a mechanical pencil, or if you're really determined, your fingers. Back at the ironing board, you're going to press this long tube so that the seam is in the center of one of the sides. This is maybe the most challenging part of the whole project. It takes a little bit of patience and practice, but if you want the most professional look, you really do want to make sure that that seam is along the center all the way through. If it's not, it's still going to be structurally fine, and you can just flip that to the side that faces your head. Next, you're going to sew 2 lines all the way down the length of your tube. Each should be 1/4 inch from each end. They should extend from the raw short edge to about 1/2 inch from the finished short edge. Next, you're going to want to find yourself some elastic. If you're following my measurements, 7/8 inch wide elastic is perfect, but 3/4 of an inch wide would also work fine. The length depends on how much stretch your elastic has and personal preference. Hold it up around your head where the headband will ultimately fit and see what feels right. Just be sure to add at least 1 inch for seam allowance. I'm actually repurposing elastic that I recently took out of the ankles of a pair of pants. Next, it's time to insert the elastic. Pin a safety pin to one end of your elastic and use that as a kind of grip as you push it all the way through your long tube. This again takes a little bit of patience, but just keep shimming it down until it comes out the other side. Once it does, you'll need to sew the 2 elastic bits hanging out of either end of the tube together. To do this, lay one on top of the other and pin them in place. Make sure that the headband isn't twisted at all, and then top stitch those 2 layers of elastics at your sewing machine. I usually go back and forth 2 to 4 times. Now shimmy either end of the fabric together to hide the elastic. One end should be finished and the other should not. Carefully push the unfinished end into the finished end. You'll have to use your fingers to kind of massage the fabric and make this nice and smooth and even throughout the width. Take this over to your sewing machine and top stitch, making sure that you catch both the unfinished edge and the finished edge under your needle. Make sure your fabric is evenly distributed across the elastic, and you're done.